Welcome to the 2016-2017 Loss Prevention Training for the Lexus Customer Convenience System, presented by Sedgwick Claims Management Services, a nationwide strategic partner for participating Lexus dealers. The purpose of this training is to review key loss prevention and risk management aspects of the LCCS program, focusing on rental agreement completion and employee usage, as well as some prohibited vehicle uses. The upcoming video was created using historical claims data, including common reasons for claim denial, as well as trends found in claims handling. After reviewing this video, please consider what practices may need to be changed or reinforced within your own service department. Why is proper completion of your LCCS rental agreement so crucial? Because the rental agreement is a legally binding document and the cornerstone of your insurance coverage. This legally binding document or contract extends coverage to your dealership, limits the liability exposure associated with renting vehicles to the public, and creates an understanding between you and the customer who will be utilizing the LCCS vehicle with your permission. All LCCS rental transactions must be conducted on the approved rental agreement form, the LEX 8842 form with a January 2008 edition date. Any deviation from this form must be pre-approved by Lexus Management before it can be used with your LCCS vehicles. Unless otherwise pre-approved, all LCCS rental agreement forms must be sourced or obtained from Graphics. This includes any 2-ply or 3-ply hard copy forms if you are handwriting your rental agreements, or any PDF files of the front and back of the rental agreements that are loaded to your rental software or dealer management system or DMS. Any backers of just the terms and conditions that are placed in a printer tray must also be sourced from Graphics. Remember, the contract is two-sided and must be printed and presented to the customer as a two-sided document. Never print the front of the rental agreement and the terms and conditions separately and then staple them together. Please note, use of an unauthorized, non-standard rental agreement may be grounds for claim denial. Adding remarks to the rental agreement, such as refueling instructions or notes about tolls or parking tickets, is acceptable as long as the wording follows the pre-approved remarks created by Sedgwick. A complete listing of pre-approved remarks can be obtained from your Sedgwick support team or by contacting Graphics. Proper retention of your LCCS rental agreements is imperative, as you may be asked to provide a rental agreement that is several months or even years old for claim purposes. Record retention requirements for open, signed rental agreements are the same as for service repair orders, 6 years plus current year. Only enrolled LCCS vehicles should be rented under the LCCS rental agreement. If your dealership has other owned units that are also used for rental purposes, rental transactions for these other vehicles must be conducted on a different form. Remember, once an LCCS vehicle is paid off and removed from the program, it cannot be rented out under an LCCS rental agreement. Here's a loss prevention pointer. If you're using rental software or your DMS to generate and print your rental agreements, always have a backup supply of hard copy forms in case you run into system or printer issues or your dealership loses power. Regardless of the circumstances, a properly completed and executed rental agreement is always required. While this review does not include box-by-box instructions for completing the LCCS rental agreement, we will be highlighting the key areas of the form that, once properly completed, create a legally binding contract. From an insurance standpoint, the LCCS program requires that each and every time a customer rents a vehicle from you, the customer must present you with a valid driver's license and be at least 21 years of age or older, unless the minimum age is otherwise dictated by state statute. Never reuse license information from a prior rental or verbally accept this information from the customer. A photocopy or faxed copy of the customer's driver's license is not acceptable. You are required to view and verify the customer's actual driver's license at the time of each rental. Additionally, as part of your risk management plan, consider creating and implementing a list of your own business requirements for each customer. Examples of these business requirements would include the customer must have a credit card in their name, or the customer must be listed as the named insured on their insurance policy. Remember, always consistently apply all rental requirements to every rental transaction and every customer. Once the rental agreement has been completed and printed, always ensure that the individual listed at the top left of the rental agreement, which includes their driver's license and date of birth information, is also the person who is actually signing the rental agreement. The customer should write their full signature and not initial at the bottom left of the rental agreement. This step is critical to ensuring that you have created a valid contract between the vehicle owner, the dealership, and the customer, who is now a party to your rental contract. The same requirements you apply to your customer must also be applied to any additional driver you wish to authorize and list on the rental agreement. Each authorized additional driver must be present at the dealership when the rental transaction is being conducted. You are required to view and verify the additional driver's license to confirm the license is valid and has no driving restrictions, as well as to confirm the additional driver is at least 21 years of age or older, unless the minimum age is otherwise dictated by a state statute. Never accept a photocopy or faxed copy of the additional driver's license. Never add an additional driver after the rental agreement has been completed and signed by the customer, as this would alter the terms and conditions of your contract. Once the rental agreement is signed, if the customer then requests that an additional driver be added or contacts you during the rental period to request this, you must close the original rental agreement and create a new rental agreement which includes or reflects this additional driver. Remember, when you create the new rental agreement, both the customer and the additional driver must be present at the dealership and must present you with their valid driver's license. It's like starting a new rental transaction. If the customer requests that an additional driver be added to the rental agreement during the rental period, be sure to have the customer and the additional driver return to the dealership with your LCCS vehicle so you can verify the vehicle's condition before you write another contract. If the customer indicates that no additional drivers will have a need to use the rental vehicle, draw a diagonal line through this section of the rental agreement and write the word none in the section. Have the customer sign, not initial, on the diagonal line you've drawn, thus indicating they understand that no other individuals have been authorized to drive the rental vehicle. Never let someone sign the bottom left of the rental agreement unless their qualifying information is listed on the rental contract. Here's a loss prevention pointer. Make a photocopy of the driver's license and insurance ID card for your customer and any authorized additional driver, and keep this copy with your rental paperwork. This photocopy is proof of your due diligence to qualify the customer and any additional drivers who are now parties to the contract. However, when a customer or additional driver presents you with a military ID, never photocopy this ID. You may view, verify, and record or write down any information from the military ID, but don't make a photocopy. Accurately describing the vehicle being granted to the customer is critical to your contract. Always list the associated license plate as well as the year, make, model, and full VIN of the vehicle. Do not use stock numbers, unit numbers, or simply list the last 6 or 8 digits of the VIN. Take the time to double check your vehicle information to ensure that it is correct and matches to the vehicle that is being utilized by the customer. Remember, some LCCS vehicles may look exactly the same model and the same color, so take the time to ensure that this information is correct on your rental agreement. If the vehicle must be changed or swapped, either at your direction or at the request of the customer, discard the original rental contract and create a new rental agreement reflecting the new LCCS vehicle. Remember, the new rental agreement must be completed and signed by the customer. Here's a loss prevention pointer. Remember that all LCCS vehicles must be properly titled, registered, and plated. Never use dealer plates on an LCCS vehicle. By far, the number one reason for coverage denial is long-term rentals. Any rental period that is longer than 30 calendar days is considered long-term. Long-term rentals are unacceptable and may result in coverage denial in the event of a loss. Keep in mind, for insurance coverage purposes, the rental period is measured by calendar days and not on a 24-hour clock. For example, a vehicle rented out on Monday, the 5th at 3 p.m. and returned on Wednesday, the 7th at 11 a.m. would be considered a 3-day rental, as the date out and the date due in each count as a calendar day, along with each day in between. Remember to be careful when setting the rental period during months that have 31 days. Always establish a valid intended rental period for each transaction based on the reason for the rental. Why is the customer being granted a vehicle today? Standard scheduled maintenance or something more extensive? Understanding why the customer is being granted a vehicle will assist you in selecting a reasonable and realistic rental period. Select and list your intended rental period on the rental agreement. This is reflected by the date out and the date due in. Never leave the date due in blank, as it creates an open-ended contract and will become an issue if the customer refuses to return the vehicle or if the vehicle is out with the customer longer than 30 days under this same rental agreement. If you're using rental software to generate or print your rental agreement, we encourage you to avoid setting a same-day default date for the date due in. An example of this would be to default the date due in on every rental agreement to be 6 p.m. that same day. Past due rentals should be reviewed and worked every day. If the vehicle was due back yesterday or the day before, or worse, several days ago, you should be following up on these rental transactions to determine if a rental period extension would be appropriate or if you need to contact the customer to coordinate the immediate return of the vehicle. Extension should only be authorized for valid business reasons, such as the customer's vehicle is being serviced and a part is on back order. All extensions should be thoroughly documented on the rental agreement or in your rental software, including the reason for the extension, the date the extension was granted, and the new authorized date due in. Never extend a rental period simply because the customer is not returning the vehicle when originally promised. When contacting the customer to coordinate the return of the vehicle, be sure to document these calls using some type of date and time-stamped phone log. Even your unsuccessful calls, such as the customer's phone mailbox is full or the phone number has been disconnected, should also be documented. Keep copies of any letters issued to the customer regarding the return of your vehicle, and always send your letters via certified mail so that receipt of the correspondence can be tracked or traced. The intent of the LCCS program is to have vehicles available for use by your customers. However, it is understood that in order to fuel and maintain these vehicles, employees will need to drive them from time to time. Employee tasks associated with the care and feeding of an LCCS vehicle would be considered scope and course activities and would include taking the vehicle to be fueled, washed, or serviced, or conducting a customer courtesy drop-off pickup at the customer's home or place of business. Always use a non-revenue ticket for you and your employees when completing a scope and course activity. Never place a customer on a non-revenue ticket. Remember, all employees who operate an LCCS vehicle for scope and course activities must possess a valid driver's license, which is not expired and has no restrictions. Here's a sample of the current non-revenue ticket. Here's a loss prevention pointer. Never provide an LCCS vehicle to an employee for use as a personal or demo vehicle, as this is prohibited usage and would be considered grounds for coverage denial. In order to maintain structure to the program, which allows for competitive pricing on insurance premium, the LCCS program has guidelines for vehicle usage by a dealer. Be sure you understand how an LCCS vehicle can and can't be used. Prohibited usage of an LCCS vehicle is not covered under the LCCS insurance policy. Therefore, if an LCCS vehicle is being used in a prohibited manner by a dealership employee at the time of an accident, coverage would be excluded and your claim would be denied. A complete list of dealer restrictions is included in the LCCS Policies and Procedures Manual. However, here's a list of the most common questions and issues that we see during the claim process. Do not designate and use one of your LCCS vehicles as a customer shuttle. Never use an LCCS vehicle for parts pickup or delivery. Never grant an LCCS vehicle to a business or organization that plans to re-rent that vehicle to another customer. LCCS vehicles may not be granted in exchange for marketing or advertising by another company or party. Never grant an LCCS vehicle for promotional purposes. LCCS vehicles may not be utilized as a chase vehicle to pick up or deliver another vehicle, another employee, or any type of paperwork for the dealership. You may not assign or designate any LCCS vehicle to a specific employee of the dealership. LCCS vehicles may not be used as a company vehicle or demo vehicle. Thank you for watching this loss prevention training presentation. Please take a few minutes to consider your own daily rental practices to ensure that you are operating within LCCS program guidelines, as well as to identify any process improvements that could be implemented in your service department today. Your next step in completing the 2016-2017 loss prevention activities is to take the 6-question test immediately following this presentation. You will receive 2 chances to pass the test. Thank you.